10 crazy NBA trades since the year 2000. So with plenty of teams making trades this offseason, including Victor Oladipo going to the Thunder, Derrick Rose going to New York, and plenty more trade rumors being talked about, like DeMarcus Cousins leaving Sacramento and Westbrook going to Boston or LA. We'll make a separate video for Russell Westbrook, but I decided to make this video discussing the craziest trades since the year 2000, because there have been some pretty crazy ones. Now, with some of these trades, certain teams don't lose out on much because of what they gain in the future, but at the time of these deals, some of these trades weren't so great for certain teams. So let's get it started. Number 1. In 2001, Dikembe Mutombo heads to the Philadelphia 76ers. Who the 76ers got? Dikembe Mutombo and Rashawn McLeod. Who the Hawks got? Tony Kukoc, Theo Ratliff, Nazir Muhammad, and Pepe Sanchez. With the 34-year-old Dikembe Mutombo as their defensive anchor, he averaged 11.7 points, 12.4 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks per game. The 76ers would advance to the NBA Finals in Mutombo's first year in Philly, while the Hawks, after losing Mutombo, finished the season with a 25-57 record. Mutombo stayed with the 76ers for one more season, but their playoff run was cut short in the first round, and age eventually caught up to Mutombo, the 7'2" shot-blocking Hall of Famer. When Mutombo got traded to the 76ers, he and Iverson led a pretty weak 76ers squad to the NBA Finals, as well as Dikembe also won Defensive Player of the Year. So the trade was a good one for the 76ers, and obviously it was a terrible one for the Atlanta Hawks. The reason why this was such a good trade for the 76ers was because this was pretty much their shot to get Iverson an all-star caliber player to try and contend with. Even at his age of 34, this was a terrible trade for the Hawks, as Dikembe still had some talent left in him, and for what they got back, yeah, it wasn't too good. They finished with a 25-57 record after he left the Atlanta Hawks. And like I said, he ended up making it to the NBA Finals with Allen Iverson, so pretty good trade for the 76ers, although they were never able to win. Number 2, Ray Allen to Seattle and Gary Payton to Milwaukee. Who the Bucks got? Gary Payton and Desmond Mason. Who the Supersonics got? Ray Allen, Kevin Ollie, Flip Murray, and a first-round pick in the 2003 NBA Draft, who ended up being Luke Ridnour. At 34 years of age, Gary Payton had all but secured his spot in the Hall of Fame, and would only spend 28 games, let me repeat that, 28 games in Milwaukee before heading to Los Angeles, while Desmond Mason spent just 2 seasons in Milwaukee before being traded to New Orleans. The real winner in this trade? Well, it's pretty obvious. Obviously, no doubt in anyone's mind was the Seattle Supersonics. They ended up getting Ray Allen, fully in his prime at 27 years old, and he would reach his full potential in Seattle, averaging 24.6 points per game, 4.8 rebounds and 4.4 assists, and 2.9 threes made in his 4.5 seasons with the franchise. I think we have a clear winner and loser here. Like I said before, Gary Payton only ended up playing 28 games in Milwaukee, and they gave up Ray Allen and a 2003 first round pick, which ended up being a lottery pick. So yeah, not the best trade for Milwaukee, but a great trade for Seattle. Number 3, in 2004, Rasheed Wallace heads to Detroit. Who the Pistons got? Rasheed Wallace and Mike James. Who the Celtics got? Lindsey Hunter, Chuck Atkins, and a first round pick in the 2004 NBA Draft. And the only notable thing that the Hawks got was a first round pick in the 2004 NBA Draft, which ended up being Josh Smith. In a monumental trade deadline deal that involved the Pistons, the Celtics, and the Hawks in a 3-team deal, Rasheed Wallace was dealt to Detroit, where he made an immediate impact. Rasheed Wallace would join forces with Ben Wallace, Chauncey Billups, and Tayshaun Prince, as well as Rick Hamilton, to lead the Pistons to back-to-back NBA Finals, and the franchise's first title since the Bad Boy era. The Pistons would capture a championship in 2004, and Rasheed played a huge role that season. The Hawks fared well after the trade too, as a young Josh Smith led them to the playoffs in 6 of his 9 seasons in Atlanta. It wasn't the worst trade for Atlanta, giving up Rasheed Wallace. They actually held on to Rasheed Wallace for exactly 1 game before they traded him to the Pistons in a salary dump, which is pretty crazy. Rasheed Wallace played 1 game for Atlanta. I mean, do you know any other players that have played 1 game for a certain team? I mean, he wasn't a bad player either. We all know about Rasheed Wallace's anger issues, but he was a pretty good player, and it was shown in Detroit. But yeah, the fact that he only played one game in Atlanta is pretty funny, but like I said, they ended up getting Josh Smith out of the deal, and Detroit ended up getting Rasheed Wallace. So yeah, it was a pretty crazy trade, because as I said, Rasheed Wallace was a huge part in why the 2004 Pistons won the championship. Number 4, in 2008, the Los Angeles Lakers acquire Pau Gasol. Who the Lakers got? Pau Gasol and a second round pick in the 2010 NBA draft, which ended up being Devin Ebanks. And who the Grizzlies got? Kwame Brown, the GOAT, Javaris Critton, Aaron McKee, Marc Gasol through draft rights, a first round pick in the 2008 NBA draft, which ended up being Dante Green, and a first round pick in the 2010 NBA draft, which ended up being Greivis Vasquez. In 2008, Pau Gasol was 27 years old at the time, and I guess you could say he was in his prime, and he was one of the league's most dominant big men. This was the missing piece that the Lakers needed to make sure that Kobe had an all-star player to compete with to win some championships. And Pau Gasol was the perfect fit. He was a smart player that could pass and stretch the floor as a big man. He didn't lose a step alongside Kobe in LA, and the Lakers won back-to-back NBA titles during his first 2 seasons. It wasn't all that bad for Memphis though, as the younger of the Gasols had since followed in his big brother's footsteps on a path to the upper echelon of NBA bigs. This is one of those deals which at the time was bad for Memphis and amazing for LA, but over time Memphis hasn't done so bad. And obviously LA won this trade as they captured 2 rings with Kobe and Pau. Number 5, Baron Davis and a first round pick to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, this trade is super crazy, and let's get into why. Who the Cavaliers got? Baron Davis and a first round pick in the 2011 NBA draft, which ended up being Kyrie Irving. Who the Clippers got? Mo Williams and Jamario Moon. So yeah, not so great for the Clippers. At the time, this trade wasn't much more of a ploy for the Clippers to get rid of Baron Davis' hefty contract off their hands, but it turned out to shape the future for Cleveland. The Cavs struck gold with the number 1 overall pick, selecting Kyrie Irving as their franchise point guard, while also managing to grab Tristan Thompson with their own pick at the number 4 selection. No Baron Davis trade, no Kyrie Irving. And you can't help but wonder if Cleveland would still be a LeBron-less, Kevin Love-less, lottery-bound team if only the Clippers didn't give up this pick and this trade never happened. You know, Anthony Davis would probably be on that roster instead of Kyrie Irving. It's a pretty crazy what-if scenario in my opinion. Number 6, in 2011, Carmelo Anthony heads to New York. Who the Knicks got? Carmelo Anthony, Chauncey Billups, Ronaldo Bogman, Anthony Carter, Sheldon Williams, and Corey Brewer. Who the Nuggets got? Raymond Felton, Danilo Gallinari, Wilson Chandler, Timothy Mozgov, Kosta Koufos, a second round pick in 2012, a second round pick in 2013, a first round pick in 2014, and an option to swap first round picks in the 2016 NBA draft with the Knicks. Who the Timberwolves got? Eddie Curry, Anthony Randolph, and a second round pick in the 2015 NBA draft. This is one of the biggest blockbuster trades in league history. Over a dozen players were dealt, and we're still waiting to crown a clear winner as a result. Since the trade went down, none of the teams have advanced past the second round of the playoffs, and only 3 players, Carmelo Anthony, Danilo Gallinari, and Wilson Chandler, still remain on their same teams. Looking back now, I think the clear winner was Carmelo Anthony going to New York, but that was totally expected when the trade went down. In saying that, the reason why it's on the list is because it was just one of the biggest blockbuster trades since the year 2000. So yeah, Carmelo Anthony going to New York was a pretty big one in 2011. Pretty crazy trade in my opinion. Number 7, the Brooklyn Nets lose out on Damian Lillard in 2012. Who the Brooklyn Nets received? Gerald Wallace. Who the Portland Trailblazers received? Mehmet Okur, Sean Williams, and a top 3 protected 2012 first round pick used to select Damian Lillard. This isn't the last time you're going to see former Brooklyn Nets general manager Billy King make an appearance on this list, as his blatant disregard for future first round picks is largely why the Brooklyn Nets' future looks so bad and hopeless at the moment. This trade isn't crazy. What's crazy is what the trade meant for Brooklyn and what it meant for Portland. Oh yeah, that's right. On the franchise point guard Damian Lillard, 4 years after the trade, Lillard has emerged as an all-NBA worthy point guard, far better than Deron Williams was during his time with the Brooklyn Nets. Both Williams and Wallace opted out, signing 5-year $98 million and 4-year $40 million deals respectively, yet both would find themselves on the way out within 3 years. The Nets flipped Gerald Wallace in a catastrophic deal we'll discuss later, and they bought out Deron Williams this past summer. Pretty crazy that the Nets could have ended up with Damian Lillard if not making the trade to get Gerald Wallace. Number 8. James Harden to the Houston Rockets in 2012. This trade ultimately meant that OKC would break up a potential dynasty. The Oklahoma City Thunder received Jeremy Lamb, Kevin Martin, and a 2013 first-round pick used to select Steven Adams, whilst the Houston Rockets received James Harden as well as a few other players. Many would consider this trade to be the league's craziest trade on the list, and that's an extremely reasonable stance to take. After all, since coming to Houston, James Harden has evolved into a superstar. Looking back today, do you think the Thunder would have traded James Harden had they known the type of player he'd become over the coming years? No, that's the clear answer, no. That said, it wasn't a franchise crippling mistake for Oklahoma City. It broke up a potential dynasty, sure, but the Thunder have remained perennial championship contenders in the 4 seasons since moving on from Harden, though they basically received 40 cents on a dollar for him. Jeremy Lamb and Kevin Martin have both since moved on, while Steven Adams has become a productive rotation member. At the time of the deal, Harden also wasn't an established franchise cornerstone when they flipped him. When Harden was on the Thunder and extension negotiations broke down, general manager Sam Presti decided to break up a team fresh off an appearance in the NBA Finals, a move that left many observers wondering why. After all, the Thunder could have decided to move him at the trade deadline if their season derailed, or agreed to match any offer he received in a restricted free agency to retain him as the trade chip down the line. Players of his caliber so rarely get traded, in large part because suitors can't cobble together enough assets to justify such a move. The Thunder undeniably made a mistake trading James Harden when they did, but they've at least rebounded nicely from it. In saying that, with no Harden, Ibaka, or Durant, and possibly no Westbrook after this season on the Oklahoma City Thunder, this Harden trade could be the main reason why this draft-made super team never won a championship. Number 9. Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Jason Terry to Brooklyn in 2014. Who the Boston Celtics received? 3 unprotected first-round picks in 2014, 16, and 18, and a first-round swap rights in 2017, as well as Chris Humphries, Chris Joseph, Marshawn Brooks, Keith Bogans, and Gerald Wallace. And who the Brooklyn Nets receive? Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Jason Terry, and DJ White. Heading into 2014, the Brooklyn Nets became really impatient. Fresh off their first playoff appearance in 6 seasons, they sent a whopping 3 unprotected first-round picks along with the rights to swap first-rounders in 2017 to the Boston Celtics in exchange for Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Jason Terry. In theory, this move would establish themselves as a legitimate threat to the Miami Heat, but as we all know, that hardly came to fruition. In fact, both Pierce and Terry fled Brooklyn upon becoming free agents in the summer of 2014. And as we all know, KG went back to Minnesota sometime later. I mean, just thinking about how badly this trade crippled Brooklyn, some could argue that this is a worse trade than the Harden trade to the Houston Rockets. And if there were an anti-executive of the year award, it should definitely be named after Billy King. And number 10, in 2015, Isaiah Thomas heads to the Boston Celtics. Who the Celtics got? Isaiah Thomas. Who the Suns got? Marcus Thornton and a first round pick in the 2016 NBA draft via the Cleveland Cavaliers. So just looking at that, you can clearly tell that the Boston Celtics won that trade. At the time, the Phoenix Suns were determined to get rid of its guard-heavy roster, sending both Isaiah Thomas and Goran Dragic away in trades as the deadline creeped closer. Thomas is an all-star point guard and a franchise player for the Celtics. And Marcus Thornton is suiting up for the Houston Rockets after playing just 9 games in Phoenix and tallying a total of 32 points. So yeah, those were the top 10 craziest trades since the year 2000. As you saw, there have been some pretty crazy trades since the year 2000. Let me know what trade you think was the worst trade. And if you want to see more of these types of videos, be sure to subscribe for more, and don't forget to drop a like on this video just to show your support. Also, my 100k subscriber video is coming out soon, But I'm doing a Q&A for that 100k video. So if you guys have any questions you want to send me, just send them to me over on Twitter, and I'll see if I can answer them for you guys. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at NickSmith71218. If you guys are free right now, I'd appreciate it if you can just go over to my Twitter, shout me a follow, and tweet me a question for the Q&A 100k special. Anyway, it's been your boy Smith. I'm out. Peace.